What's up, people? It's your girl Adiola. I'm sure that you guys have seen the video. 53 African delegations were in China last week, including several African presidents. You know, the president of Kenya, president of Rwanda, Togo, Cameroon, Uganda, Equatorial Guinea, Gambia, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and the list goes on and on. All these African presidents were in China. So to cut a long story short, a major reason why they went to China was to go and beg for money. So China is giving African countries another $60 billion. That is a lot of money. Okay, this is in addition to the $136 billion loan and investment they've received from China. You know, a lot of people are excited about this, and you know, I can reason with that. The loan is to develop Africa. You know, finally we're developing Africa. But you also need to understand that we've been borrowing money from China now for years, and you know, I'm talking about huge amounts. Okay, billions of dollars each time, and I'm yet to read anywhere that we paid back any of the money that we've been borrowing. All we're doing is borrowing and then borrowing more and then borrowing more. I don't understand that equation. So you can't help but to wonder what we've done with the one that we borrowed last year and the one we borrowed the year before that and the year before that, because it started with small amounts. Last year it was $170 billion for African countries, and then it keeps going up. So I do see infrastructural development in several African countries, like in Kenya. I've seen the train stations in Ethiopia as well, and also we've seen the trains in Nigeria. However, in Nigeria, a lot of this money is being embezzled by our government officials, and you know, most times they don't even give us the quality of infrastructure that they promised to build with the loans that they are taking in our names, which is why most of the train stations in Nigeria cannot stand next to the train stations in Ethiopia or Kenya. So we get less quality despite claiming to spend more money in Nigeria.
Behind me is the Abuja Metro line, which was recently commissioned by President Muhammadu Buhari. With 5 stops from Abuja Airport to the central area, it's expected to transport passengers from the airport to the main city center. Thousands of passengers will benefit from this initiative, and it will run for 100 kilometers per hour.
So it worries me that we are not doing justice to the money that we have borrowed in the past, but we're borrowing more money. We have stories of people keeping millions of dollars cash in their homes in Nigeria. We have government officials buying expensive houses in London, in the US, in Dubai, owning several mansions in Nigeria. Meanwhile, nobody has been successfully prosecuted. And we see the government officials buying Rolls Royce and other expensive cars, luxurious cars, exotic cars. Some of them are even boasting of having more than 20 luxurious cars. Yet we're borrowing more money. So how does this make sense? Election is coming up in Nigeria very soon, and it's very hard to convince some of us that they won't spend some of this money that they are borrowing on election as well. And please, I'm not an enemy of progress. I'm not saying that we should not develop Africa, and I'm not saying that we should take loans from the US instead of China. No, I'm saying that we have not been responsible with the loans we are taking either from the US or from China, but we keep digging into more and more debt. So that's the first thing that concerns me. We are not accountable. By now, we should be making profit from the previous investments that we made with the money that we borrowed 5 years ago, 3 years ago, so that we don't continue to borrow. How much have we generated from the completed infrastructures like the train stations? These trains are not free. People are paying to ride the trains. Is the profit being reinvested into the economy, or is it being used to maintain the trains, or is it being used to pay off our debts, or is the money ending up in some people's pockets? These are things that we have the right to know if our government is responsible. They should tell us, this is how much we borrowed, this is how much we have spent, this is how much we have left, and you know, after investing this amount, we now make this revenue from the project. Second of all, what exactly is the plan for paying back the loans? What's the plan for paying back our debts? Because I'm yet to hear that this is how we will pay back. I know that our government is telling us that there are no strings attached, but if somebody borrows you money and you cannot pay it back, believe it or not, they have power over you. They have leverage over you. I mean, the other time we were outside and I saw ice cream, me and call it, oh, I didn't have my purse with me. I said, borrow me $2, so make I buy ice cream. Now, so the boy gave me $2, just $2. The guy asked for his money like 10 times before we got back to the office. It was very embarrassing. He was harassing me on the street. Can you imagine? I almost fired him that day. But jokes aside, when it comes to payback time, China does not play. Chinese people don't play with money. You need to live in New York to understand it. They don't play with money. So last year, Sri Lanka was unable to pay back the loans that China gave them. I mean, they should have been able to pay it back, except that they had some corruption issues as well in their country. You know, there were several reports of corruption practices among government officials. Some of them were pocketing part of the money. And I'm talking about top officials as well as members of the president's family, you know, like his brother. People were misappropriating money like Nigerian officials do. So guess what happened? China seized a major port in Sri Lanka. A major port. By the way, they were the ones that gave them money to build that port. Today, this port has been given to China as a lease for the next 99 years. 99 years. I don't know if you're understanding what I don't know why they didn't just say 100 years. And you know, when they take over a port like this, all the profit goes to China for the next 99 years, which makes me wonder, are these African leaders also selling the future of our children by borrowing money that they may not be able to pay or they are not being responsible with? Are they mortgaging our future as well? And I'm very sure you guys heard about Djibouti, that beautiful African country, because right now China is trying to take over a major port in Djibouti as well. They're still on it. But you know, is this how they'll start taking ownership of ports and cities or dams or natural resources if our leaders cannot pay back before they take over Apapa port? That is why I'm making this video. By the way, as soon as they were talking about taking over the port in Sri Lanka, do you know that Nepal pulled out of a 2.5 billion loan that China had offered them because they know what would happen to them if they cannot pay? And not just Nepal, Pakistan also withdrew from a $14 billion loan agreement that they had with China for building a dam. And they said this is because the conditions of the loan included China taking ownership of the project if they are unable to pay. And so they were like, no, we would not risk losing this dam. So right now, there are 8 countries where at any moment China can seize something because they are not able to pay their debts. What is the condition of our debt? Why is it that our government officials are not telling us the repercussion if we are unable to pay? What are we mortgaging for these loans? Because I don't think they just give you loans for nothing. Or do you guys think China is giving us special preference because we're Africans? I don't think so. Which brings me to my next point. Personally, I don't think that China is giving us all these loans because they care so much about Africans. I don't. Maybe they do, but I just don't think so. A part of me thinks they're giving these loans also for world dominance and also to win the power tussle between the US and China. You know, they are both trying to prove to themselves. I mean, look at Djibouti. America built a military base in Djibouti and China did the same thing. Can you imagine? And now China is trying to take over the port in Djibouti, and America is so worried that it would affect them. In fact, America is very worried by the way China is investing across African countries. And it's not that America cares about Africans being able to pay their debt. No, that is not the case. It's because when these African countries cannot pay back their debt, guess who will take control of the natural resources? America knows that it will be China, and we are right in the middle of their politics. So the hold of the West on Africa will be broken, but then China will just take over. Whoever feeds you controls you, which breaks my heart because we've never been truly free. And you know, it's because we have all these leaders that don't really know what they're doing, or maybe they do, but they know that they will be dead by payback time. So the reason I said that China is not giving us money because they care about us is that, especially if you go to China, a lot of Chinese people don't always see an African person as equal human being to them. Not all of them, please. Not all of them. I have absolutely nothing against Chinese people. I have Chinese friends. I just wish that Africans would wake up and stop being naive, especially when it comes to taking money from other countries. Because the racial discrimination against black people in China is alive and well. October of last year, the Hubei Provincial Museum in China had an exhibit that they called "This is Africa," and that exhibit is mainly pictures of Africans next to animals. They used pictures of an expression by an African and a similar expression by an animal, and they put them side by side and they said, "This is Africa."
So guys, this is
These photos of African men paired with photos of animals were exhibited in a show called This is Africa. It took place in early October in a museum in Wuhan in eastern China.
Can you imagine? Wow. I mean, are they saying that we're animals? Imagine the Chinese kids that see this exhibit. When people ask them about Africans, what do you think they would say? You know, that we're animals. This is something that happened recently, okay? I don't understand how a whole country cannot say what is wrong with this. They later took them down but they refused to apologize.
The museum took down the 12 controversial photos. However, it did not issue any apologies.
Now, the worst part is that the Africans living in China who saw this exhibit, not all of them could speak out for fear of what may happen to them. Some of them spoke out, but in anonymity.
There were photos of men, black men, juxtaposed with animals. Many people didn't feel like they could openly express their dismay due to the country we're in, which is a communist country where freedom of expression is not guaranteed.
That breaks my heart. Do you know that there are hotels in China today where Africans are not allowed, especially if you go to the city of Guangzhou? They said that they only ban people from Kenya, from Nigeria and Uganda, but really, so long as you're black, you're not allowed in so many of these hotels, and that's the same city where they are seriously cracking down on the African community. What I'm trying to say is that it's not easy being an African in China. However, the reverse is the case for Chinese people that moved to Africa. I don't need to give you guys examples of how many Chinese companies are mistreating their African workers in Africa. I mean, I've told you about a Chinese company that pollutes the Gambian water. When people protested, they refused to do anything, and then the people of Gambia removed the Chinese pipe that was polluting the water. Can you believe that the Chinese people put it back and then they put a Chinese flag on top of it? 3 years ago, I told you how the China Civil Engineering and Construction Corporation in Lagos fired more than 500 workers in one day without notice, despite that they were owing them salaries. And the workers revealed that they were being used as slaves. And in 2015, a Chinese restaurant in Kenya refused to serve food to black people after 5 p.m. They tell the Africans, you are not welcomed here.
Kenyans on social media cannot believe that it is possible to face this kind of discrimination in their own country.
No African guests are allowed at the restaurant after 5 p.m.
And that was despite the fact that they were operating without a license.
The owner was on Monday accused of operating a restaurant without a license and was bonded for 50,000 shillings.
And so when we managed to talk to the manager of the restaurant, they said that indeed they do not have a license to operate here.
We also meant to understand that whenever authorities come here to get documents, they're normally told that the Chinese can't speak English or even Swahili, but when their clients come in, they're able to speak. It's something that the police are trying to establish.
Now keep in mind that an African cannot operate a restaurant in China without the proper license. And when the police eventually invaded that restaurant, the whole kitchen was a mess, it was dirty.
Perhaps shocking to Africans whose presence here is a security risk after 5 p.m., but to the clients, a perfect delicacy.
They found body parts of dogs that were being served to customers.
We entered the cold room where the restaurant keeps their meat. We found fresh dog legs hanging. The stench in the room was unbearable.
That's just wrong. How do you serve dogs to people? And then they found out that the restaurant was just a cover-up for a brothel. At the back of the restaurant, there were 16 self-contained rooms that Chinese men were using to sleep with prostitutes. The prostitutes were also Chinese people, but they were using the restaurant as a cover-up.
What you're being told by the workers is that these rooms, the 16 of them, the self-contained rooms, they're being used for prostitution.
The day that the police came to the restaurant, all the Chinese people fled, although Kenya was able to arrest the owner and took her to court. So I don't think that China is giving us money in Africa because they just care so much about black-skinned people. I don't think so. And lastly, you know, I can't speak for every African country, but Nigeria has no business whatsoever borrowing money from anybody. No. We should not be borrowing money from anybody. We have no business doing that. With all the oil money, I mean, it's like saying that Saudi Arabia is borrowing money. We have everything that we need to be a great country in Nigeria. We just don't have the right leaders. And now they're getting us in more debt. If we can mismanage our own oil money, we would easily mismanage free money that is coming from another country. I mean, we have successfully mismanaged more than $500 billion oil revenue. So guess who's going to pay for all this debt? Our generation, which is why we cannot keep quiet. So I want to know what you guys think about us taking all these loans, not just Nigeria, but several African countries, especially if our leaders are misappropriating the loans, because someday will be payback day. So let me know what you think about that in the comments below. You guys know I don't know much. Guess what? I'm just keeping it raw. So before I sign out, I'd like to thank the Northern Virginia chapter of the Nigerians in Diaspora Organization in the Americas. Last weekend, they invited your girl to speak at their 2018 conference, and you know, they showed me so much love. You know, I met a lot of great people. I had so much fun. And then in the evening, they presented your girl with an award. I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna cry. Although I was crying the whole night. Anyway, for real though, thank you so much. I felt loved, and you know, I was looking good, all thanks to the designer of the dress I was wearing. Uriel Global Fashion. You can find them on Instagram and you can check out their website. And also that same weekend, the Africa Youth Award Organization in Ghana named your girl as one of the 2018 100 most influential Africans. I was like, what? Shut up. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And also congratulations to everyone on the list, you know, including Farida Naborema of Togo, as well as Bobby Wine of Uganda. And yes, Bobby has been released. He's presently in the US receiving treatment. Thank you so much everybody that protested on his behalf. So yes, thank you so much for naming your girl. I really appreciate it. You guys don't know much. Guess what? I'm just keeping it real. So before I sign out, if you're a woman and you live in the New York area, September 28th to 30th, the Grace International Church in the Bronx, New York is having their 2018 Women's Conference. Yes, I'm so excited because they have a lot of great speakers that will be presenting, like Cindy Trim. You know, a lot of people will be sharing their story about how they went from nothing to something. It's all about empowering women. You don't even have to be a Christian to come, so long as you're interested in bettering yourself. Can I say that? They have a lot of women that are very successful that are coming to share their story, how they went from point A to point B. You will learn a lot and it's free. So make sure that you come. Go on their website. You can register. It is absolutely free. And guess who else will be there? Yes, your girl will be there. Your girl will be there on Friday night as well as on Saturday. So I won't be there on Sunday, but Friday and Saturday I will be there. So try to be there if you can. I'm sure you will have a great time. Plus, it's free. I mean, how could anybody ignore a free conference in New York? For real, it means somebody. So if you are coming, let me know. It will be great to meet you guys. All right, y'all. It's been real, and I'm keeping it real right up in here. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're yet to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please make sure that you do that. Until next week, I'm gonna see you all later. Peace out.